Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill, along with Andrew Moran, Dave Patterson, Graham Noble, and John Clark. And this is the Conservative Five, an online TV news production of Liberty Nation News. Ever since Donald Trump announced in 2023 that he was running for president again, a lot of folks thought he'd never get past the primary. Again, never underestimate the Donald might be the message there. Then Joe Biden slipped up. The media finally announced the emperor was wearing no clothes and slid in the most unpopular vice president in modern history. Centuries of modern vice presidents. And in a couple of assassination attempts. And this has been the weirdest presidential campaign in 50 years. That's my opinion, of course, and Graham may have a different view than mine. Hit it, Graham.
No, Sarah, I think you really nailed it with that. I just don't see that there has ever been a campaign that I can think of, or maybe that anyone else can think of, that is this strange. I'm reminded of the film, I think it came out maybe in the 80s, or there was a movie called Sex, Lies and Videotape. And this campaign certainly seems to have all of those things. We've had, rumors of sexual dalliances, and then we've had plenty of lies, or at very least deceptions or misinformation, as they like to call it these days. And almost every day, it just seems to get more and more bizarre. And then, of course, we've never had a situation where a sitting president was essentially taken out of his re-election race by the elders of his own party. And I think we can all agree that that is actually what happened. The very idea that Biden just decided one day that for the good of the country, he was going to step aside is kind of laughable, really. He was ousted, I think, with Liberty Nation in previous video productions have described it once or twice as a palace coup, which is what it was. So we never had that. And now we have a candidate from one party who never actually has notched up any success in any primary, and this time didn't even have to go through a primary to get the nomination. And then on the other side, of course, you have the hated Donald Trump, who is, widely vilified, along with all of his supporters. And of course, we just had what I think might be the much ballyhooed October surprise, which I will be writing about, and you'll be able to read it on the pages of libertynation.com. You will be able to read it in the morning, October 31st, Halloween. How appropriate. But yes, Joe Biden referring to Trump supporters, and very clearly, people are trying to interpret it differently, people on the left anyway, but very clearly describing Trump supporters as garbage, which may, I believe, have possibly quite a significant effect on the all-important undecided voter who is still perhaps sitting around wondering whether he or she is even going to go to the polls, and if so, who he or she is going to vote for. So that's an interesting one. So back to your original point about it being the most unique or surprising or unexpected or weirdest campaign, certainly in the last 50 years. Absolutely. I'm right up there with you, Sarah, on that one.
I want to see the next big thing in Halloween costumes is just a big hefty bag with garbage sticking out of it and a Trump sticker on it. I just want to see that. I just think it'd be kind of fun. So if you're looking for a good costume tonight, there it is. It's just been too weird. I mean, what you have these weird things happen, and then the next thing you know, something tops the weird thing. I mean, Andrew, what's your best facepalm moments of this entire campaign?
Oh my goodness, I could go the whole show about facepalm moments. Okay, look at what a timeline here. Let's go during the primaries. Nikki Haley, she had so many terrible moments during the primary process. Her dedication toward Ukraine, her suggestion of name verification on social media, Vivek Ramaswamy effectively ending her political career. It was astounding. And then during the primary process, you also had a debate between Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis, a potential 2028 or 2032 matchup. And then, DeSantis just eviscerated the entire debate. And now on the other side, where the heck do you even begin? So Joe Biden unintentionally was a one-man comedy show. He said he talked to dead leaders back in February. Foreign leaders tried to guide Joe Biden throughout all these foreign events and tried to mask his cognitive decline. And then he had this constant slurs and saying absolute inane things. The president of Mexico helped with Egypt opening the doors. What the heck? But then, of course, I think perhaps the biggest facepalm moment was when so many people urged him to step down after declaring that he was perfectly fit for office, and also that Biden said he would never step down. Lo and behold, they tell him to step down, and then he steps down. Now, what about the current vice president? Okay, so there's a lot. Just the other day, she used the same line in a local television interview show and I think Dave loves this line, I come from a middle-class family. Now, is she just ripping everybody? I mean, is she Selena Meyer? I don't know. But I think the most ridiculous of all her media, of all her press appearances so far, the most ridiculous one was with Brett Baer. And he asked her, why do you think the country says, most country thinks the economy's on the wrong track for the last 3 years, yada, yada, yada. And she says, Donald Trump, he's been running for the last few years. What did that have to do with anything? So there are so many facepalm moments on both sides of the aisle that this is the funniest campaign to me in my years of existence. It's following politics when I was 4 years old.
Okay. Okay, now let's face facts with the numbers. Clar, the Democratic Party and the Biden campaign and now the Harris campaign has outspent Trump. How is Trump neck and neck?
It did? Oh, fortunately, I've done a little research on exactly those numbers for our listeners today. I'm glad to be a good reporter. But a little aside, as far as the popcorn munching spectacle that we're watching when I went to the store yesterday, I don't get out much from the farm, and the woman who was waiting on me and referencing to the election said it's a choice between Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. And I said, I see what you're doing there. It is looking kind of like a circus around the world. But as far as the funding of this election, I think a Beatles song comes to mind. I know how Andrew likes the Beatles. Money can't buy you love. I was surprised to see just how much money the Kamala Harris campaign has raised, over $1 billion. And she goes into this month, according to CNN, with a substantial lead still of $346 million over Trump's $285 million to spend in these last couple of weeks. Maybe on a house in the hills for somebody to live in, but she's been consistently outspending him. $196 million she spent on advertising in September to his $73 million. And so again, the money doesn't seem to be turning people's minds on the policy issues. They're watching what's going on. She doesn't apparently have over twice as many repeat supporters or donors than in June under Joe Biden. So that maybe says something about, within the party, its shift. And interestingly, CNN comments that she needs this money to introduce herself to voters, and the growing money that Trump's billionaire supporters have injected into the contest. But then they go on to point out that $25 million came from Timothy Mellon to Trump. But they talk about a few donations on the left, but there's no mention of the recently disclosed $50 million donation by Bill Gates to the Kamala Harris campaign. So I don't think that was out at the time. But consistently, what we're seeing is that she has far, far more money, and the polling numbers seem to be moving almost in a directly disproportionate direction to how much money they throw at it. And so I think that is itself a story. Maybe Graham will write that one too. I'm looking forward to your piece, Graham. It sounds very interesting. I'm sure it'll be fun.
Does sound interesting. Hey, Dave, you and I are the older contingency on panel. How does the 2024 election compare to all the crazy things we've seen in the past?
Well, I think that, as Graham pointed out, there are very few campaigns that rival the one you're seeing now. But throughout history, there have been some strange political escapades. One comes to mind, the emergence of Teddy Roosevelt's Bull Moose Party, bummer of a name, but giving the impression the
I like that
Republicans
name.
were in disarray, and effectively the Bull Moose Party gave the election to Woodrow Wilson. Although I must point out that the Bull Moose Party did pull down 25% of the popular vote, kind of impressive for a third party, but there are some similarities. Teddy Roosevelt, a very popular politician at the time, and former President Donald Trump were both shot at. Roosevelt was shot in the chest while he was on his way to a speech in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. And the bullet actually went through the 50-page speech manuscript and just penetrated the skin, which says that maybe long speeches do have their place, But he went on to give
teleprompter.
Yeah, he went on to give the speech with the bullet in him, and he says it takes more than that to kill a bull moose. I think
I like that line.
Among photos, though, that the Trump's iconic photo following his brush with death and the fight, fight, fight mantra is certainly reminiscent of Teddy and one that will stick with us.
I like that comparison. I'm a big fan of Teddy. T-Rex.
I'm waiting to see Kamala Harris tool around in a tank. Helmet on.
That was one of the dumbest things I've ever seen.
Or maybe a Howard Dean scream. We need a Howard Dean scream, maybe. I don't know if you remember that.
Yes, another one.
I just did it for you.
Some crazy stuff out there.
Being close.
Well, yeah, those two assassinations were interesting. Two assassination attempts. Let me revise that statement. That'll scare some people. Anyway, we're in the sprint to the finish now, guys. And thanks for watching and tune in on the big day. We're live C5 coverage. Well, that's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all as well. Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Now, Liberty Nation does not endorse candidates, campaigns, or legislation, and this presentation is no endorsement. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today, and tune in for our live election coverage on the big day. Your coverage choice for free thinking, free speech, libertynation.com.